brought about the domestic violence protocol that I'll talk to you a little bit about this afternoon came out of a tragedy. It was a beautiful July morning. In fact, it was July 8th in 2014. And about 9 o'clock in the morning, one of our managers received an email from an employee. This employee was a lab tech. She worked in oncology at Suite 700 at the Deaconess Health and Education Center. And what she told her manager was, my husband and I are separated right now. I've been separated for about 2 weeks. She had 2 little children. And I've been going to different friends' places to sleep, those kind of things. But what I want you to know about is that I have to take some time off to go to court and other things that I have to accomplish for the next couple weeks. But this is at 9 o'clock in the morning. But don't worry, because my husband will never come here at work. He'd never do that. And I just want you to know that I'll need some time off. That was the first idea that the manager had, that one of his employees was having an issue. It was domestic violence. That was about 9 o'clock. At 9:25, her husband came to the 7th floor of DHAC, walked down the hall. He knew where the employee entrance was. In fact, he had been in there before, coming through that employee entrance. All the people that worked with her didn't see anything out of the ordinary. They had seen him back there where the employees are before. So he walks in, he goes down there towards the lab where our employee was taking a sample from a patient, and he's standing just there in the hallway waiting until the patient leaves, gets up of her chair and walks out, goes through the door into the lobby. He then walks in and shoots his wife, and then commits suicide. You know, from that, and the last time I was up talking to this group, I got into a lot more detail, but I don't want to focus on that tragedy. What I want to spend a couple minutes about is what we did afterward. You know, we had all the policy in place. We had the domestic violence policy. We had the active shooter policy. We had emergency preparedness policy. All these things were in place. None of them could have prevented this. But what did grow out of it was the domestic violence protocol. Since 2014, we've had 30 women that work for us, and we're a company of about 1,400 employees, come forward and tell their manager, or they come talk to me, or they'll go to HR and say, I'm living in that type of relationship. And what happens then is that we connect them with some tremendous resources here in Spokane. We partnered with the YWCA, Alternatives to Domestic Violence. We also worked with the National Domestic Violence Hotline. The Lutherans have a very, very good program also that we access to these employees. The other thing the protocol does, the other thing the protocol does is we have a process to help these employees through the court system, because that in itself is extremely intimidating and it's confusing to people. They have enough things to wrestle with at that point in their life. And these women are trying to care for the children. They're trying to find a place to sleep and to do battle with the court system makes it even tougher. So we have advocates that go with them and help them get the no contact orders, the restraining orders, those kind of things. So I would really urge you to look at your company when you go back and your organization and develop a protocol or a policy to help the people in your company that are in this kind of relationship. You've got to build a culture where they feel safe in coming to you. And you can create that by just the very resources that you make available to them. So I know we don't, I'm not going to take much more time, but I just wanted to tell you that out of that tragedy, we now have a way that identifies employees that are living in that relationship. That it's much more of an advanced notice for us than just an email at 9 o'clock in the morning on any given day, and then a tragedy occurs 25 minutes later. So I want to thank you for your time. Any questions? Yeah.
So what is something that I found that I had to deal with was to kind of help that person realize that there is no judgment, there's none of that. All there was a desire to keep you safe and not talk about why you got where you are, and no one was going to be impacting or having any opinions about that. We were just there as a facilitator for getting you into a place where you wouldn't have to deal with it.
That's right. And Sylvia is one of our managers. And the managers, they're really, what has to happen is that you have to have support from your first line managers that the employee knows that the culture is such that they're comfortable in going. And because this is a very private matter. And to me, these 30 women that came forward during the last 2 years, they're heroes to me, because 1 in 4 women are subject to physical abuse in this country. And the employees that we have that had the guts to come forward, we were able to help tremendously. And what's so heartening is that so often they'll be writing, emails back to our CEO, thanking the CEO for all the resource and privacy, but also helping them through, which was an extremely difficult part of their life. Anything else? Okay, thanks.
I've got it.
Okay.
Her name is Ryan Charvet with YWCA. She is, you might know her, with domestic violence. She does advocacy for everybody. So write that name down. Put it in your HR bulletin. She's an advocate every step of the way, from that first call all the way through appointed advocates for children, guardian ad litem. They take care of everything. It's a great organization.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning her name. What you really want to do, if you want to be serious about helping anybody that's in this relationship, is contact the Y and have them get their information to you. They've got great pamphlets at the YWCA, Alternatives to Domestic Violence Program. Contact them and get the information they have, and then get it out to your employees. Because out of this horrible tragedy that we talked about here a couple of years ago, has grown a program that has helped so many people. And I'm not even going to get into all the other things that we did after that tragedy, as far as look at our security program. Where were we lacking? How, now as an employee, you can't have your family members coming through into the work area. We've really beefed up. There was a lot of lessons were learned. The only one that I really wanted to talk about this afternoon, though, was the domestic violence program.
John, I want to one question for you before we go. I really appreciate the approach that Rockwood's taken to this. So easy for people to focus on security policies and things like that, or even focus on run, hide, fight and that piece of it. But actually preventing the incident is really a proactive, preventative approach that's quite impressive. And your numbers, when we were emailing back and forth, you've got a bigger response pool per employee base than the 2015 Spokane County domestic violence research indicates that you should have. So you've really created a culture of inclusion that's allowed this to be successful. It's one thing to get the information, one thing to put the leaflets in a rack, but I'm wondering if you can go into even more detail about what departments are involved, what frequency of training do you have with your managers in place, because the reason that we really asked you to get here is because this is an example of a threat, active shooter, a emergency management plan and a policy to mitigate that, and then really bringing it down to the policies and procedures level of your emergency management plan to try and reinforce that hazard mitigation, right? I mean, so what are the policies that are in place as far as training and frequency and departments that allow that mitigation strategy to work?
Okay, we'll give it a try, Travis, and see where we end up. First place, the policy was developed with the outside agencies and people we consulted with when shortly after this tragedy occurred. Every employee, even at our new hire orientation, is told about the domestic violence protocol. So every one of our employees understands that we have this available, even the first day they come to work. We review annually with our employees many of our policies, and this is one of them, that they understand that they have this in place. When an employee comes forward to a manager I'll meet with the employee and the manager. And then I take what was discussed then, and I go back and I consult with our risk manager. I consult with our HR department on this particular situation, this individual. We also contract with a security company that we consult with, trying to determine the level of threat. One of the things we look for when I'm talking to the individual, is you get in a lot of detail. You're still living in the house with this person. Are there children? Are the children his? Because that really complicates it, especially when they go to get a restraining order. Because if they're the biological father, that complicates it. Are there guns in the house? So we get into a lot of detail that way. But basically, it's a group effort that includes safety and security, the human resources, and risk management. And also, the other thing that's really important is this program is supported from the CEO down. So did that kind of answer what you were talking about? Any other questions? Okay, thank you for your time.